putting on this sweater so that me, the editor, knows what footage that I'm shooting back to back is for what video. That's called life hacks. Hello, and welcome back to Babbling Books. And if you think I'm wearing the same shirt, I am, but we're not going to talk about it. This video is also being filmed on a Monday afternoon because this is when I have time and Wednesday's my editing day. We're not going to discuss it. My life's a mess. We're moving on. Either way, the topic of this video is 2021 reading resolutions, which I very rarely make and manage to hold, but last year I did, and so we're going to try to keep that train going because I actually blew last year's resolutions out of the water because I only had one, and it was to read 25 books, and I actually managed to up that goal up to 40, and then I read 45, and we're thriving. So let's just continue on that. I don't have all that many, I will be real, and a lot of them are what basically everyone has, but I do have them in my little book journal, which is part of my reading resolution, which is to actually keep up on this. I started in September. Basically, all I do is I have the books I read for the year. I'll put a little rating. I say what year it was published, and then I have the author, so I know what's going on. Books that I really want to read, like Addie LaRue, got its own page, has quotes and different pages to quotes. It was one of my favorites, so it got a cat sticker. It's a great way for me to keep track. So, unofficial segment on resolution 1. Keep this journal back. Keep it going. But let's jump in to the real ones, which I have on a page in the journal. So we're already off to a great start. So if you see me looking down, it's to this. All right, the very basic one is the one that everyone does. My GoodReads goal for the year is 40 books. I read 40 books last year. I actually read 45. That's a miracle. The highest I've gotten since high school is 30. And so 45 was I think that's actually possibly one of my best reading years. I used to judge myself really hard because you'd go on here and people would be like, I'm setting my goal to 100 and I read 89 books this year. Oh no, I'm disappointed. I only read 105 of my 150 goal. And I'm sitting there like, I read 20. I'm impressed. And half of those were comics. But either way, I want to keep that going this year. I think I can because I read audiobooks during my lunch breaks at work. So I'm usually having 2 books go. Audiobook at work, can usually knock an hour or so out of that every day for my breaks. And then my physical book, which I read on days off and before bed on nights that I have the brain power to do so. So I think I can hit that pretty easy. We're only 4 days into 2021 and I'm already a book in. It was great. Audiobook on monsters. Recommend it. Then we're going to get into just my general reading resolutions. The first one on that is the one that everyone's got. Read more diversely. Don't do it as a quota system though, that's bad. Don't be like, I need to read 5 books by a Black author. No, just be conscious of what you're reading. Make sure you're not only reading by white men. Make sure you don't have a shelf that looks like this and that's all you're reading. There's nothing wrong with reading Cassandra Clare and Sarah J. Maas. Just be aware of the stereotypes that they put into those books. Deconstruct those stereotypes that they put in those books. Then read books by authors that are different than them. Sabaa Tahir writes great fantasy. I'm going to point at my bookshelves because I'm not climbing up to grab these books. Sabaa Tahir does great books. They're very much similar to these in high intensity fantasy, lots of politics involved, but they're written by a woman of color. The characters are diverse. It's good writing too. So just read more authors that wouldn't normally get a lot of advertisements. I use Sabaa Tahir as an example because she was the first books I saw on my shelf. Neil Shusterman, read his books, diverse reading. There are lots of authors that are incredibly talented that don't get hyped up because the publishing industry prefers white authors because they know they sell. So just read more diversely, whether it's LGBTQ books, non-white books. It's important to continue and read those diverse stories. So that's just, I was gonna keep that section brief because I mean everyone's telling you that. I'm gonna be trying to do better. but just read. But also I'm trying to diversify also in the subjects I'm reading, not just in the making sure I don't just read white straight authors, but also making sure I read more genres that I'm not normally reading. So like I read a lot of fantasy, I read a lot of comics. I like other genres. I want to continue reading those other genres I like. So there is literary fiction. I like literary fiction. I read maybe one literary fiction book a year. I want to branch out on that. I read a lot of physical books. I want to continue this audiobook binge that I've had going. This is also just how I read and what I read, make that more diverse, basically. Oh, number 2 should be obvious, because not to y'all, but just like as a reader, it's like, maybe you should do this. This is part of reading, and that is a finish series. I have this really bad habit of starting a series and just not finishing it, and it's not even that I'm not enjoying it. If you're not enjoying a series, don't finish it. Don't do that to yourself. But I was enjoying Throne of Glass. I got 3 books left in it. I enjoy TDA, The Dark Artifices. I got the last book in that. I own these ones. You can see I haven't read them. I haven't finished Sky Beyond the Storm because I do what I do with every other ones that I did with Throne of Glass and Dark Artifices. I read 100 pages of the last book, got stressed about the fact it was ending, and did not finish it. I have a terrible tendency to not finish series. So I want to finish series this year. So early book plans are finish Sky Beyond the Storm. That's my first book of the year after the monster book I read. So finish Sky Beyond the Storm. I'm actually going to go read that after I shoot these videos. I'm going to finish Queen of Air and Darkness. Is that the last Dark Artifices? That's how long it's been since I read that series. But anyways, I'm going to finish that. It's going to be great. That's part 2. Empire Storms, Tower of Dawn, Kingdom of Ash. I'm going to finish those. This is the year of finishing series. It was supposed to be last year, and then we went into quarantine, so I just did a bunch of rereads for comfort. But I did finish one of the series I had to finish. I finished Darker Shade of Magic series, and I'm going to continue that energy into this year. I'm going to finish series. Kind of going hand in hand with that is I want to start some more adult fantasies. When I finish up these young adult fantasies that I've had on my shelves for ages and just never finished, I want to start reading more adult fantasy. I have read adult fantasy at this point. I enjoy more adult books. I find them very entertaining. They're just as fast-paced, and I like that they're more complicated in the politics and the magic systems. That's what I'm here for. That's why Ember in the Ashes is one of my favorite series. It's young adult, but with the complexity of an adult, it's fantastic. I've had Mistborn on my shelves. I own Mistborn. You can see it kind of vaguely next to my chairs right there. I own it. I read 20 pages after freaking out. Didn't continue reading it because I read it when I was freaking out and was super confused. Read about 50 pages last year and I was like, this is really good. And then I just hit a slump. So I want to actually start these books. I got City of Brass on my shelves. I want to start these adult fantasy series. But the catch is, I'm also going to finish them. See? I'm a smart cookie. And then my other just general, I want to do this, is shrink my physical TBR. I have a lot of physical books that I haven't read. I can point on just the 2 shelves you can see. I have The Bane Chronicles and Shadowhunter Academy. I got Queen of Air and Darkness. I've got Empire Storms, Tower of Dawn, Kingdom of Ash, Court of Thorns and Roses, and Courts of Mist and Fury. I've got This Savage Song. I got Sky Beyond the Storm. I got The Diviners, Kiss of Deception, Falling Kingdoms, Language of Thorns. I own all those. That's just on that shelf. I have no idea what books are directly behind me. And I know the shelf below me is mostly books I haven't read. It's a lot of Amy Tan books. I've read 2 of her books and love them. And I want to read more. And I haven't read them. So I want to shrink that physical TBR because there was like 10 on just these 2 shelves. It needs to shrink, especially because I'm hoping to move out this year and I'm not going to be able to take them all with me. So I want to take ones that I really love, not ones that will haven't read it yet, need to fit it in. Finally, we come to my last part of my reading resolutions this year, which is actually part of why I did so well last year as well, which is the Reading Glasses Challenge. For those of you who don't know, which you may not, there is this podcast produced by Maximum Fun called Reading Glasses. It's hosted by Mallory O'Meara and Bria Grant. I actually got a sticker of them on my journal. I will link where to get it down below. But last year they did a reading glasses challenge, and it was things from like, there's 5 book types that you have to read and 5 activities, and like one of the activities was like, put down a book you don't like. I DNF'd so many more books because I was like, oh my god, I'm allowed to. And so I want to continue doing their challenges because it forces me to read things I wouldn't normally read, while also letting me do things that maybe I don't think of as like reading activities. But then it's like, ooh, an excuse. It gamifies it more than I already do, and we all know that when something turns into a game, I'll do it. I enjoy it to begin with, but now I have an excuse to do it. It's achieving goals. So anyways, I'm just gonna run through their challenge real quick. So reading wise, they have read a banned book. That will be easy. I'm sure at least one book I just read on my own accord will end up being a banned book because we live in America and there are a lot of banned books. Poetry collection. I'm taking recommendations for this. I don't like poetry at all. I haven't really tried to read it much after school because school just trains you, don't read a poem, analyze a poem. And so the concept of reading poetry is like going back to high school, and I can't do it. So I don't even know where to start. The third box I actually technically have already covered, and we're only 4 days in, and that is read a micro-history. I didn't even realize I was reading micro-histories last year because I read Devil in a White City. That's a micro-history. I loved it. And then I started reading a book about the monster book I mentioned earlier. Read that. Technically finished it this year, even though I listened to most of it in 2020. So since I read most of it in 2020, I am not counting it for this because now I'm reading a book about haunted houses in America. I think it's actually called Haunted America or something like that. I'll put the actual cover there so y'all know what I'm talking about. It's phenomenal. I skimmed chapter titles. One of them is definitely about where I went to college. I'm thrilled. So yes, micro histories I found out I actually love, which is why I'm fine doing the poetry challenge. And this challenge I'm gonna have knocked off right away. 4th is read a book by a native author or a first, I have it written down and I don't know how to speak. Read a book by a native author or a First Nations author. That I think is a great, they had a similar challenge last year. It was read a book by a BIPOC author, specifically by a POC female author, a woman author. And then, so I read a lot of books just like naturally on my own accord. So, but I realized I don't read a lot of First Nations authors' books on my own accord. So there was a book I can't remember the title of it, there's a book they mention a lot on their show that will fit that, where a woman, it's like werewolf history based, and a woman's husband goes missing, and then one day he turns up and he's preaching in a parking lot as like some parking lot faith healing preacher, but he doesn't remember who she is. And so like, I want to read that one. Rebecca Roanhorse's books, I really want to read a lot of those. So this year it's just, I was going to read those books anyways, but they also check off a box, which is kind of nice, and it also brings attention to those authors. So even if there were people who weren't normally going to read a Rebecca Roanhorse book like I've been intending to, they might now, because gamify it, people will do it, and then they'll find authors they love, and it helps bring voices to these authors. I do like that. And the last one is a book recommended to me by my library. This is probably the one I'm most nervous about, even more than the poetry book, because I don't go to the library. I go to the digital one. Hopefully their site will have it on there, pretty easy to recommend. But I just know that at least the LA library recommends me a lot of like bodice ripper romance, and that is not my style. So I'm a little nervous for this one. And I can't even ask people for recommendations because the whole point is I'm getting recommendations from the library, and I am nervous, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. 2021 reading resolutions. And then that brings us into the activities, which actually also then turn a lot into read the books. It's easy. You gotta read a book to be able to do a lot of these. So like the first one is make a wheelhouse. They have this thing on their show where it's basically your wheelhouse of reading. And that is the surprise third video that connects to this. I'm probably going to make a video doing my wheelhouse. And it's just like things you like to find in a book. So if you really like books, Women on a Journey, I believe, is one of their wheelhouse items. So just books about a woman on a journey finding herself. You will always, like, if someone tells you it's an X book, you will pick it up. Attend a virtual book event. These are the one this year. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to complete the full challenge, simply because, like, attend a virtual book event. Those cost money, and also I live in Central Time, so a lot of them start Eastern Time and are like, start at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. I don't get off until 10:30 Eastern Time, so they're over by the time I'm off work. And so I don't know if I'm going to be able to make any of those, but I really hope to. And so basically it's just a lot of book tours have gone virtual right now. And so it's a way, if we help normalize more virtual book tours, you'll be able to see authors from international places more easily. Like V.E. Schwab is usually exhausted. She lives in France. She can start doing tours online. And I mean, the issue is, though, it's then still American time, but it's just, then people can't really leave the house. It normalizes them, and they can get tickets to virtual book tours, and maybe, like, even when they go back to bookshops, there'll be like a live stream for people. And so I do understand why it's there, but that's the one that that one's gonna be a challenge. That one's gonna be a challenge. The third activity is to review a bookstore that you really love and support on social media. Not like a big box, like a local one. So I don't quite know how I'm gonna go about this yet, because, like, I don't want to tell people where I live. And if you're reviewing a local bookstore, people are gonna figure out roughly where you live, and it's not really what I would post on my normal social media and be like, go to this bookstore, I'm gonna review it. So I don't know what I'm gonna do for this. I also kind of, usually if I order from a local bookstore, I don't have that many in my area, so I order them from places where I don't live and I haven't been for a long time, so it just feels a little weird. I'll see what I can do. I got 12 months to figure it out, but it is very important. Review and support your local bookstores, because even if you can't afford to buy books from them right now, you can afford to give them a Yelp review, and that makes people more likely to buy or visit their store, and that does help them in the long run as well. Always review things. Reviews are wonderful. I'm preachy, but yeah. Review your bookstore if you can't buy a book from them. It will help. I'm figuring out how to do it, because it's the on social media bit. I would gladly leave them a Yelp review. I don't know if Yelp counts as social media, though. I always feel very awkward putting things on social media, I say, as I film a YouTube video. This one, review a book by a POC author. So, like, last year, it was read them. But again, just like with bookstores, reviews are just as important. That's how the word spreads. People will read your review and see, like, 4 stars. They said they liked it for these reasons. That's reasons. Those reasons are in my wheelhouse. I'll read it. So, I mean, I very rarely leave written reviews, but hopefully with this, I'll start doing reviews more often. But I also will occasionally leave, like, 2 or 3 sentence reviews on GoodReads. Link to my GoodReads down below. See what a train wreck I am. And then 5 is the one I'm very excited for. Last year they had donate books. This year, on a similar vein, is get rid of a book. It doesn't have to be donated. Just sell it. Don't get rid of it. Turn it into art. Just make it not so that you read it. Get rid of a book you don't like. And I'm not going to say the name of it, but I already know a book that I'm going to be getting rid of. This one's going to be fairly easy for me to do, because, again, like I talked about, I'm hoping to move this year. I don't have anything set up right now to let me move, but oh my god. I'm hoping that the pandemic will start to tamper down with the vaccines and everything else, so that at least by fall I can cut. And if that's the case, I'll be getting rid of them by leaving them at my parents' house, because then I don't have to take them where I am hoping to live long term, and that will help me get rid of books. If not, I'm probably going to donate it again, just drop it in like a local Dropbox, find a local My Little Library or whatever they're called, tiny library, free library, those things, little houses that look like fairy houses but they're full of books, donate it there maybe. There's a couple of books that it's like I've tried to read multiple times, it's just not for me, and so getting rid of them will be nice, but I wasn't quite ready to get rid of them at the time of donating my last big pile. So yes, that is my 2021 reading plans and goals. My voice is hurting right now. Again, like I said, don't want laryngitis, so I'm just gonna sign off. You can follow me at my other social medias. Who knows if they're active? We'll figure that out in time. If not, yeah, you're not missing anything because, like I said, I don't post on them really. I will figure that out as time moves on. Thank you for watching this absolute train wreck of rambling. I will eventually learn to follow a script because I write them out and then I just ignore them. Thank you for watching this. Goodbye.